Today we're going to create a virtual machine from a basic template, and next we will give the machine a useful role as an application server. Once all said and done, we will migrate the workload from on-premise to the VMware vCloud hybrid services. So Jeremy, let's just go ahead and dive in.
Thanks, Jason. Here we are in the Puppet Enterprise console, and you can see we've got just one node right now. It's the Puppet Master itself. And what we're going to do is we're going to prepare for this Tomcat application server node that we're going to provision in just a moment. So I'm going to add in the node's name right here. We're going to call it Tomcat 8, and we're going to add on its domain name there because that's how it's going to be coming in. And we're going to add it to the application server group. That means it's going to get particular configuration to give it a Tomcat application server. So now that that is done, go back out to our node view, and we'll see that we have this node shown, Tomcat 8, but it's not yet reported because it hasn't even been created yet. So now let's pop over to our vSphere environment and fire up the template that's going to have the Puppet Enterprise agent pre-installed on it. Now this is a process that you can either do after you've spun up a VM, you can install Puppet Enterprise agent, or in this case, we've baked it in. So I'm going to navigate over here to my VMs and templates. I'm going to choose this CentOS template that has Puppet Enterprise pre-installed on it. And I'm going to deploy a new virtual machine. I'm going to name this virtual machine Tomcat 8. I'm going to make sure it's in this data center here. And I'm just going to accept the defaults. And once it's done, I'm going to power it on. So it'll check in with the Puppet Master and receive its configuration. So the beauty of this approach is, instead of having a golden image with all of the Tomcat application server information, packages, users, files, scripts already pre-installed, what we have instead is a base OS image with just the Puppet Enterprise agent, and we can check in and get the latest and greatest version of our Tomcat config. And then because we know how Tomcat is set up, we can maintain that configuration over time. It's literally a blueprint of executable documentation that will allow us to make sure we don't drift away from the desired configuration state. It also allows us to use a similar Puppet specification to deploy VMs in other types of clouds if we like Azure or AWS or OpenStack clouds. So now that this is just about cloned, we'll see it checking in with the Puppet Master, and then it'll receive its configuration. The way that the Puppet Enterprise Master works is it waits for Puppet Enterprise agents to check in. They identify themselves through their secure certificate, and then via SSL communication, we send down all the configuration information that that node will need. It then configures itself. In this way, you can deploy tens or hundreds of nodes in parallel. They're all configuring themselves. The master does not become a bottleneck. All right, let's see if the Puppet agent has checked in with the master at this point. Perfect. We can see that Tomcat 8 has checked in. It's in the role of an application server. And actually, we can see that this is where changes were made. So let's take a look at those events. We can see all of the things that happened, all of the resources that were managed, everything from scripts that need to be run, files that need to be put in place for configuration, firewall rules, software packages like Java, the starting of services like Tomcat, for example. All of that managed by Puppet Enterprise. At this point, if I browse to this URL, we should be able to see Tomcat, and great, we've got Apache Tomcat up and running. Now we're ready to shut this node down and migrate the workload to vCHS. We could do that again in vSphere, or we could do it from the command line. The first thing we're going to do is see what commands we have available to us. You can access these by typing puppet help node VMware. And we can see we've got a lot of options to help with provisioning VMs from your vSphere environment. We can bootstrap, or we can individually create, start, stop, terminate, list the nodes available, find a particular VM or template. We've got a lot of options available to us. Let's start out by just listing the VMs available in our current environment. So I'm going to use puppet node VMware list. So we're connecting to the vSphere server, and we see now a whole bunch of nodes and templates returned to us. Note the data center string here. This is how we can refer to a particular VM or template So the first step is to shut this node down so that we can move that workload across. That's the long name for the template. So now I'm connecting to vSphere and asking that Tomcat 8 be shut down. So now that I've got this node shut down, we're going to get onto our vSphere client, and you'll notice down here at the bottom, I've got a vCloud Connector plugin. That's what's going to allow me to migrate my workloads from my on-premise VMware environment to the vCH cloud. So I can go into my data center here and browse through my virtual machines that I have available. And you'll see right here, we have our Tomcat 8 node that we spun up just a little while ago. I could, of course, power this on, but I'm going to move it over to vCHS, so I'm going to use a copy operation. I'm going to pick my target cloud of vCHS. I'm going to choose to put it in my sales engineering catalog. I'm going to choose which virtual data center I want to put it in. Right now I've just got one. And I'm just going to move it over without deploying it after moving it. Once everything looks good on the other side, then I'll go ahead and deploy the VM. Click Finish, and the copying process will begin. So once this VM is copied over, we'll be able to manage it in vCloud Hybrid Service. Start it up and start using it. Let's go check it out. So here we are at the vCloud Hybrid Service web interface. We can go down into our virtual data center here, and we can manage our virtual machines. Here you can see we've got Tomcat 8, and if I drill down onto that, we can see how it's spec'd out and that it's currently in a powered off state. If I click here, I can power it on. Let's do that. So now we're going to power up Tomcat 8. At that point, we could start navigating over to it and using Tomcat. Or we could stand up the rest of our environment, including maybe database servers or other front-end servers, and have a whole environment managed on the VMware cloud using Puppet Enterprise. What we've done here today is we've taken a VM template that had a base OS image and a Puppet Enterprise agent pre-installed on it. We powered that on, pointed it at a Puppet master, and it received a configuration, a very complex configuration. It became a Tomcat application server from basically nothing except a vanilla OS. Then we were able to take that fully provisioned application server and migrate it from our test environment on-premise out to the VMware cloud. We could do that with all sorts of different server types to stand up a full infrastructure in the cloud after testing it on-premise using vCloud Hybrid Service, vSphere, and of course, Puppet Enterprise.